Okay guys, what we're going to do today is attempt to do an oil change on this Toyota Yaris petrol engine. Not quite sure what we're going to find. The first thing we've decided to do is, because the vehicle is quite low to the ground, is to just run it up onto some 4x2 or 3x2, which a bit unorthodox, but this is a do-it-yourself method. And that gets the car a little bit higher, and of course it remains level at the same time. Now, the next thing you want to do is always avail yourself of your pink blanket so that you can get underneath the car reasonably easy. Pink's always good, but if you've got a different colour, it'll be perfectly just as acceptable as usual. Right, now looking down in here, I can't see any evidence of an oil filter, but so I guess we've got to find that from underneath. Always put your rubber gloves on if you've got them. It pays dividends in the end, because when we get the oil plug out, you can end up getting smothered in it. Right, now we go underneath and see if we can see what's doing. Okay, yeah, this is low. Yes, this is extra. Right. So there's the filter just there. This could be a bit awkward. Right. Okay guys, I'm going to be quite honest. That is so low, I've decided to stick the car up on the ramps in the normal method when you want to get under there. Let's just see if we can see what's going on under here now. Okay, so here's the oil filter. Slightly worrying, it has a bit of oil dripping off it, which is probably not ideal. And that, presumably this thing here is the sump, but I don't see where the drain plug is. Oh, well, that's interesting, because the drain plug is apparently at the back, so I'm actually tempted now to drain this while it's up on the ramps, because obviously the back of the sump is going to be the lowest point now. So as long as that is actually the drain plug, I think that's going to work. That feels like about, I don't know, 15 mil. Right, let's go and get some tools. Right. Well, I can't see anything else that resembles a drain plug under here, so I think we're going to have to assume that's our drain plug. That goes on there loosely. That is a 9/16, which is just a little bit over half an inch, which would be something like 13 millimeters, I guess. Let's see what this is. Okay. Okay. No. Yeah. Right. So that's a 14 millimeter socket there. Well, I'm sorry we missed some of that due to the fact the camera was full, but we have released the nut, the oil sump nut, and we've now got a bowl full of hot black oil. Okay guys, we have got the sump plug out and we're just leaving that to finish draining now. Next thing to do is see if we can get the filter off, which I think we'll give that a wipe first and then see if we can do it by hand. Okay, these filters can be quite stiff. There are various tools which I'm sure I've got in the garage somewhere, but we'll just try it by hand. Oh yeah, that is a two-hand job. Yeah, well, using two hands it comes off, especially if you've got rubber gloves. That's unscrewing quite well there. The trick is with those, they should only be on hand tight in the first place. So unless you've got exceptionally weak wrists, you should be able to wrench that off. Especially, also wearing the rubber gloves gives you a bit more grip. But we're not going to take that off yet because obviously that's going to drain as well. So we want to arrange our bowl in a way that will cover the drips coming out of the sump plug and the extra oil that's going to come from this area here. So you just need to organise yourself properly to cover those 2 points. Right, so we'll unscrew this. I've got my number 2 drip tray there now, so we just unscrew this carefully. As you see, there's always going to be some spare oil coming out of there. Right, just remove the filler cap. That'll probably help the oil drain out a bit if there's not a vacuum there. Right, so we remove this oil filter. A bit slippery. Could go anywhere, could slip out your hands. There she goes. Let the oil run away into your number 2 filter. Right, so there's the old filter, which is an ADT product, blueprint. This one is a MAN filter. The oil is from GSF. My regular people who I always get my oil from, this is the one that is supposedly the right thing. No doubt there'll be somebody on here telling us, no, you've done it all wrong again, Dad. But we're just trying to follow the instructions as in the handbook and every known source. So the filter looks the same size and the oil is recommended for the job. There's the sump plug. It has got a washer on it. Now it's probably recommended to change the washer. This one is so welded on to the shoulder there, I'm tempted to just leave it alone, clean it up, and that'll go back in. Right, so that's the place where the filter goes. I'm going to clean that, make sure that's all nice and shiny before we put the filter back on. And I like to just give that rubber seal a little bit of a smear around as well, so that it makes a nice fit. And putting some oil in the filter before we start means the engine won't be running dry. Right, so let's get that back on there then. You're supposed to put it on hand tight. If you put it on hand tight, there's a chance you've got a chance of getting it back off. Well, that is, I'm not really giving it massive welly, but that is nicely tight on there. I'm happy enough with that. So we're going to clean the sump plug area and put the plug back in, and then we'll be ready to top the engine up. Guys, one thing I would say is when you're tightening this sump nut up, it's not a test of strength. You tighten it until it bites just nice and firmly. You don't need to try to strip the thread. So just tighten it so it's nice and tight. It's not a strength test. Right, so the oil filter's back on, the sump plug's back in. We can now push the car off the ramps, because obviously we can't drive it off because there's no oil in there. So we will push the car off the ramps and then fill it up to the correct amount. Right, now when we come to put the oil back in, always use a funnel, because you don't want to get this whole area covered in oil. That is going to look really embarrassing the next time you take the car to the garage for something. Right, fill the engine back up with oil. Check the dipstick is between, wants to be at the top of those two markers, if you can see them. It should be ready to go. So let's just quickly see if the engine turns over okay. Sweet as a nut. Right, well I hope that helps some of you. I'm not saying this is the right way, the wrong way, the correct way, but even if it's not showing you how to do it correctly, it'll still maybe of some help to some of you. YouTube has helped me a lot with the fixing the jobs I've done, and this job has taken about an hour. Okay, if you've got plenty of money, you might want to take the car to the main dealers, charge you about 150 quid, I suppose. Oil and filter have cost just under £25. And okay, I got my hands dirty, but I didn't have to take the car to the dealership, leave it there all day, wait for the inevitable call saying the brakes are all shot, would you like us to fix those for you as well? That's another £300. So, you know, this is the do-it-yourself method. It's not for everybody, but it is for me.